So I know I talk about ancient Egyptian dogs a lot, but that's what I did my master's thesis in, so I like to talk about it a lot. But I guess we could talk about cats in ancient Egypt and also speculate why ancient Egyptian culture is now so synonymous with cats, because I think after I give you a little bit more information, you might be questioning why that is. So there are many ancient Egyptian goddesses who are depicted with the heads of cats or as a cat itself, such as Mafdet, Bastet, Mut, and Sekhmet. Many of these goddesses are dating extremely old to the early dynastic age in the Old Kingdom, but there's also slight confusion as to whether or not these are supposed to be lioness goddesses or a domestic cat goddess. Minus Bastet, who is usually depicted more as a household cat, though she was not always depicted as such. Besides the goddesses, there are quite a few depictions of cats in a more familial or secular imagery. Similar to the dogs of ancient Egypt, they are usually depicted seating next to their humans or underneath the chairs of individuals in tombs. Now, these can be interpreted a couple different ways, as cats could be used as household pets, but they could also be working animals taking care of vermin in the house. But in comparison to how many ancient Egyptian dogs are depicted, cats are very rarely seen, and they are also very rarely named. And I'm going to do a whole separate video on named cats next. The reason that I now think we associate so many cats with ancient Egypt has really nothing to do with them being the personal pets of the ancient Egyptians, but really has to do with the sheer amount of mummified cats that have been found in later ancient Egyptian periods. From around the 22nd dynasty and on, domestic cats were increasingly worshipped and considered sacred as the deity Bastet became more and more popular. So when cats died, they were mummified, just like a human would be. And just to give you some context, this is around the 950s BCE. Then even later in the late period, around 664 BCE, cat mummies were used as votive offerings, and thus it became like an actual industry where people would purchase mummified cat remains to bring back and bury at sacred locations. And cats were probably specifically bred for the purpose of sacrifice and mummification during this time. We have found literally millions of cat mummies, along with lots of other mummified animals like dogs, jackals, crocodiles, ibis, and falcons. The interesting thing here is that these little mummies here, it is not necessarily a full cat. In some other ways, the industry was scamming people, and while we now look at some of these cats via x-ray, there is usually, sometimes, only one bone, which, hate to say it, this one, it makes me think that it might be this, that there is usually only one cat bone inside of it. And who knows, maybe this is a scam, or maybe this is a cheaper way so that a more expensive, a more elaborate mummy would actually have a full cat, while some of the other ones would be shaped to look like cats and only have one bone of a cat in it. So really, when it comes to kind of looking at that actual close relationship of having pets, or at least having working animals in some case, because most ancient Egyptian pets would also be working animals in one aspect, dogs were way more superior to the ancient Egyptians than cats. And I find it very odd that we often never really associate dogs with ancient Egyptians, or we mistakenly associate them, but we're actually thinking about a jackal. So what do you think? I'm going to do a separate video on named cats next.